Oke, terima kasih Mas Pur. Selamat pagi rekan-rekan semuanya. Terima kasih sudah memberi pengantar, dan saya tidak akan memperkenalkan diri saya sendiri. Saya tidak suka memperkenalkan diri, kecuali nama saya Lely. Ini kedua kalinya saya di perpustakaan. Dulu kita, kalau yang sudah pernah bertemu, dulu workshop predatory, jurnal predatory. Tapi saya di fakultas ini udah 4 kali PBSMB, kemarin saya juga diundang ke sini, jadi terima kasih jadi langganan. Untuk saat ini saya tidak akan saya akan berikan ke Alex, ke suami saya, karena dalam hal ini saya akan memberikan background pengantar untuk menunjukkan sedikit apa yang berbeda dengan academic writing workshop misalnya. Kan ini mesti sudah banyak sekali kan teman-teman, mesti ada academic writing workshop, ada scientific writing workshop di mana-mana, ya kan? Banyak di mana-mana. Dan kita tahu bahwa kita pulang sebetulnya masih tetap bingung kita mau ngapain. Jadi begini, saya memang apa yang sudah disampaikan oleh Mas Pur, apapun itu tadi yang disampaikan, tapi antara tahun 94 sampai 2008-an atau 2009-an itu saya bukan bekerja, tapi membantu teman-teman atau siapapun yang membutuhkan, kebetulan sebagai penerjemah ataupun editor. Jadi tesis, disertasi, kuesioner, penelitian, report penelitian, segala sesuatu saya sering dimintai tolong. Jadi saya tahu banyak mengenai kelemahan penulis Indonesia saat mereka menulis dalam bahasa Inggris. Dan saya juga tahu bahwa kebanyakan kelemahan mereka justru bukan pada bagaimana mereka menulis ilmiahnya, tetapi bagaimana mereka menulis, titik. Jadi saya kenapa saya ingin Alek memberikan pendekatan yang lebih istilahnya lebih akurat ke target apa yang diperlukan oleh penulis Indonesia, terutama untuk memperbaiki cara penulisannya, karena kebanyakan bukan bahasa Inggrisnya yang menjadi masalah pertama adalah menulisnya. Dan kita tahu bahwa kalau menulis itu kan seperti melukis, seperti menyanyi mungkin, atau memainkan alat musik, perlu bakat. Ada orang yang bakatnya memang di situ, ada orang yang tidak bakatnya di situ, dan masih bisa juga untuk memupuk bakat kita memerlukan kerja keras, memerlukan terus latihan terus-menerus, dan kalau tidak itu akhirnya tidak akan jadi. Nah, di situ dalam menulis juga hal yang sama. Ada orang yang memang bakat menulis, senang menulis, ada yang memang tidak bisa menulis dan mau gimana lagi. Seperti saya mau menggambar kayak apapun nggak akan pernah bisa. Bukan bidang saya nggak punya sentuhan untuk melukis, terutama kalau menggambar tenis masih bisa. Kalau melukis saya seperti biasa menggambar gunung ya kayak gitu, terus matahari di tengah itu bisanya saya. Dan pertama yang harus kita saya percaya bahwa pertama kali yang harus diadres, yang harus istilahnya diberi di target saat kita mau memperbaiki cara penulisan, cara scientific writing kita adalah cara kita menulis. Dan ini berdasarkan pengalaman saya, memang yang saya betulkan pertama kali waktu saya mengedit naskah dari teman-teman di Indonesia itu bukan bahasa Inggrisnya, tetapi bahasanya, titik. Mereka kadang-kadang tidak tahu bagaimana menyampaikan apa yang ingin mereka sampaikan, dan itu yang sebetulnya fatal. Karena saya yang mengedit bahasa Inggrisnya tidak tahu mereka maunya ngomong apa. Saya harus Google Translate ke bahasa Indonesia dulu, baru saya paham mereka mau ngomong apa. Jadi mereka Google Translate ke bahasa Inggris, saya Google Translate ke bahasa Indonesia, karena saya tidak paham sebenarnya mereka mau ngomong apa. Dan seringkali seperti itu. Jadi di sini kita tidak akan bicara yang sudah rekan-rekan sekalian sering temukan di academic writing, yaitu bagaimana menulis pendahuluan, bagaimana menulis tujuan yang efektif dan seterusnya. Tidak, kita masuk ke, semoga tidak keberatan, ke dasar, ke bottom apa istilahnya, fundamental permasalahan dalam cara kita menulis ilmiah, sehingga ini agak berbeda dari academic writing yang teknis. Ini adalah kita main pakai ini istilahnya. Jadi kita harus mengidentifikasi kelemahan kita sendiri, dan ada yang lebih baik dari saya bukan bagus, jangan salah. Saya bukan bagus dalam mengedit seperti dalam mengedit naskah dan seterusnya, tapi ada yang lebih baik dari saya karena yang sudah memang kerjaannya, dan karena dia seorang penulis dan dia tahu feeling, dia tahu kelemahan orang Indonesia, karena sudah bekerja lebih banyak dengan orang Indonesia daripada saya. Jadi saya serahkan ke tangan suami saya. Oke? Tiga ya.
Does this work?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is for the Okay, thank you. That was really long. Yeah. I think you basically said everything I'm going to say already. Okay. Then I think we can just quickly go through the introduction stuff, right? Writer, editor, documentarian, content development consultant, blah, blah, blah. In OGM, I did the ICST. There's two of my team members over there. So I led the UASC team, you know, doing websites, talking to people, communication, social media stuff, basically anything to do with English in the ICST, ICSEAS, ICTA, and ICHS. I've already forgotten. But anything to do with English, that was me. Journal stuff. I was involved with the Inago thing for UGM, basically screening authors and pushing them to do that. Journal development, basically Ajay Biotech is me and Leily, everything. Website, journal, article layout, English, abstract editing, all of that is us. And you and Yora, same thing, helping them get into Scopus. Okay, so the actual important stuff about me. First, I'm not an academic. I think this is important because most people think that if you need to have your paper edited, just contact someone with a PhD and they can fix it for you, because PhD means you can write well. That's not true. Just because you have a degree in engineering doesn't mean that you're a good writer. So I make a big point of the fact that I'm not an academic, I'm a writer. So I approach everything from the perspective of, I don't work in your field, so I'm not an expert in what you do. And the words that you use don't mean anything to me. I only focus on the language. So my approach, A, does a normal person understand it? Good writing means everyone can understand it. Maybe they don't understand the technical terms, but everyone can read it. And B, it means good fundamental English. That's simple. Okay, so what you can expect from this. A, learning through example. If you have your laptops with you, I recommend you turn them on for later because you will be using them. B, gaining a better understanding of your strengths and weaknesses, what you're good at, what you're not good at. Identifying common mistakes in Indonesian writing. Understanding what and what not to do with your manuscript. Just some ideas of what you should be doing when you're writing it. And developing simple techniques to ensure that your work is easier to edit or evaluate. So easier to read and having good science. What you should not expect. So don't expect to go home today and suddenly you have perfect English. It's not going to happen. Improvement is not an instant process. It's going to take time. The things we're going to discuss today are probably not what you're expecting, but they're important things that most people overlook. To have good English, it's going to take hard work. So if you expect to have an easy time here, then you're not going to improve. So don't expect that everything is going to be easy. Next, I'm not going to edit your manuscript, but if I do edit it, we are going to look at your English today, you're going to have to learn something. If you learn nothing today, then I have failed in what I want to achieve. And I'm not going to sell you a product or a service. This is a big thing, right? I'm not here to say, hey, you should hire me as your editor. I'm good. No. I'm not here so that you can get me as your editor. And I'm not trying to sell you a product. I'm not promoting a company or anything like that. I'm just here because you want to improve and I want to help you achieve that. So, part one. Let's look at the hard truth about learning English. Writing is a skill. So like any other skill, it's going to take a long time to perfect. We have to start from a solid foundation. If you don't start from a solid foundation, then you're not going to have good English down the line. You have to learn good technique. You want to sit? If you have bad technique, you're going to have bad English. And we have to keep working to stay in shape. So if you want to have nice muscles, you have to go to the gym every week, multiple times a week. If you stop, you're going to lose your muscles, right? If you want to be a good swimmer, you have to swim often. English is the same thing. Writing, you have to keep working on it. There is no miracle cure to bad English. So again, I cannot sit here and tell you, if you do A, B, and C, you're going to have a good manuscript. It doesn't work that way. It's many little things. Improvement takes time. Again, it's a skill, you have to refine it. A workshop is a tool, not a solution. So again, this clinic is not the solution to your problems. I'm simply providing a tool that you can use to improve. And just because you understand your writing doesn't mean others will. This is really important because every single writer on the planet suffers from this. You write it and you understand it, so you assume that others understand it. We have to overcome this fact. And from now on, just think about this. If you understand it, does not guarantee that others will understand it. Because people are not mind readers. They cannot read your mind, right? Okay, and you have to write for the reader and not for yourself. So don't write it for your understanding, write it for others. So, something we have to address as well is the fact that everyone on the planet, every single person who writes needs an editor. The most professional writers need an editor. Dan Brown, do you know Dan Brown? He needs an editor. He needs like 3 editors because he's actually a bad writer. So every single person needs an editor. Every successful author has an editor. So if you believe that you do not need an editor, you're making the first mistake. Okay, we know that one already. Workshop is a tool. And good English, a good English writer starts as an Indonesian writer. So if you can write well in Indonesian, then I think you said the same thing. Then you can progress as a writer as well, because writing, again, is a skill regardless of language. Writing itself is a skill. So ask yourself, are you a good writer in your own native language? Okay, my experiences editing Indonesian authors. Can you see that little man over there? And a massive dragon. And this is me trying to edit someone who is not a native speaker. I'm trying to fight this massive dragon who keeps attacking me. And if you don't believe me, look at all that. Okay. That's a lot of work. And when you have to edit something like that, the experience to someone like me who wants to do a good job is that I'm fighting a massive dragon because there's so much I need to do. In the case of this paper, it took us weeks to edit it. Not 1 day, not 2 days, weeks. And we had to talk almost daily. I had to speak with the author, we had to meet, we had to discuss her paper. And she speaks English well, yeah. But she's not a good writer, there's a difference there. So, it's a lot of work. And you can see in this case, because I got to speak to the author, you know, face to face, not face to face, but you know, we got to talk. There's a lot of colors there. In the case of this one, not so many colors, but you can see massive comments asking lots of questions. So even if I do not get to talk to the author, it's still a big problem, and instead of fixing it, I'm asking questions and hoping that they know what I mean. But again, I'm fighting a dragon. I'm trying to understand what you want to say and help you get there, and it's a big struggle. The truth is that editing an Indonesian writer's work, like any other language, it takes time. Less than 5% of papers that I've edited took less than 2 days. The exception of the papers that take less than 2 days are ones that are basically already good and they just need a little bit of tweaking, and those are the vast minority of papers. The vast majority of papers take a lot of time. And again, we have to separate between authors and proofreaders, editors and proofreaders. A proofreader is for a journal, not an author, because a proofreader looks at the final version of a journal article and says, here's some typos, here's some things to fix. An editor is what an author needs. So if you say you want a proofreader, unless you are a publisher, that's not what you need. And again, because it takes so long to edit, think about this. The longer it takes to read a manuscript correlates with the quality. So the lower the quality of the English, the longer it takes to read, only read. So by proxy of that, the longer it takes to read, the longer it takes to edit. So when you say that I need someone to quickly check my manuscript, if they're a professional editor, then there's no such thing as quick. Because if the quality is bad, it's going to take a long time. There's no quick fix. So if we look at the problems that I encounter when editing Indonesian authors, the first thing is Indo-English. It's hard to say, Indo-English. And Indo-English is the amalgamation of Indonesian and English. And it stems from bad sentence structure rooted in Bahasa Indonesia. Because we think in Indonesians, we write from an Indonesian perspective in a different language. It's like me trying to teach you about engineering. It's impossible. I'm not an engineer. And it's going to make sense to you because you're Indonesian, but to a non-native Indonesian person, it does not make sense because I don't think in Indonesian. And here's an example. While eating his noodles, the cockroach peed in his tea. Do you know what that means? So the implication of the first one is that a cockroach is eating his noodles, maybe mie ayam, and at the same time is peeing in his tea. So a cockroach is eating noodles while peeing at the same time in his own tea. It's nonsensical. Does it make sense to you? No, the answer is no. But if we have a simple fix of while Tim, a person, was eating his noodles, a cockroach was peeing in his tea. So here is Tim eating his mie ayam, and while he's not looking, there's a cockroach busy walking over maybe his estate. So the first one we get a lot, but if we look at a more technical term, we have the data based on our analyses. When we mean based on the analyses, and these two things mean opposite things. One is the data is based on the analysis, when in fact you're analyzing the data. So in the first case, it maybe makes sense to you as an Indonesian writer, but that's not what you mean. In fact, it is the opposite of what you mean. Okay? Do you have any questions about that? Okay. No, okay. So, another example is compensating for limited vocabulary. So, of course, I can speak Indonesian sedikit, not a lot. So, I understand things like saya suka mie goreng, but I cannot say more than that. My vocabulary is limited. Many times, people compensate for limited vocabulary by opening a thesaurus, or they Google a word and they look for a synonym of the word. And they see use and they see utilize and they think, oh, utilize, that's a smart word, I'm going to use that. And so they end up using a word that does not actually mean what they want it to mean because they know that their vocabulary is limited, and so they want to sound smarter, so they just look for a word that that Google says is the same. In fact, they are not the same. Next is using big words. Again, utilize instead of use. Use is a good word to use, but many people utilize instead because it sounds smarter, because they're compensating for the fact that saya bisa bicara sedikit. If that is even correct. Next is overwritten sentences. Now, this is a significant problem that I think stems from Indo-English as well, thinking in Indonesian. So we can say, I did not go to campus today because I felt sick. That makes sense. But then you say, especially since it was raining. What is the connection between being sick and raining? There's no connection. And based on the fundamental understanding, it is mentioned that when religion came into Java, in which the society was included, the Javanese people had accepted Islam as part of. This is just nonsense. And I mean, I'm just going to continue now because I can spend 10 minutes discussing this one sentence. And the experience of an editor is that you have to sit there and read the sentence multiple times and become a mind reader to think, what does the author mean? So, what fundamental understanding? What? It is mentioned. Who mentioned? Again, the cockroach peed in his own tea. It is mentioned by whom? And then randomly saying in which the society was included, Javanese people. It's just, so this is overwriting a sentence. And if you still do not believe me that this is a problem, I'm not joking. Who wants to read the sentence? Oh, this is just an example I wrote. I don't want to criticize an individual too much. Can you find the period? Look for the full stop. Can you find it? It's right at the end, isn't it? Do you want me to read the sentence for you? Do you want me to? Yes or no? Yes? No? I guarantee I will be out of breath before the end. This is overwriting a sentence. It's going and going and going and going when the stop is already there. You're on a bus and the bus is already past your stop and now you have not gotten off at the right place. This is a significant problem, and I think something you can probably instantly identify in your own writing. Next, simple errors. Now, this is the most common things, right? Missing articles, verb confusion, and plural confusion, preposition confusion, basic things that are forgivable. Because again, writing is a skill. We can forgive people for doing this. Inconsistent usage of terminology, less forgivable. We're going to come to this part. Google Translate. Who has put something in Google Translate and then pasted the result? It's okay. We're going to do this. So again, if you have your laptops, we're going to discuss Google Translate. Then, overconfidence, saying, I'm a good writer, so I'm going to write what I want to write. I don't care what you think. And the result is bad English. Or lack of confidence and saying, I'm not good enough, so I don't want to write a difficult sentence. I'm going to write a simple sentence, and the result is boring English. Both are bad, although I will say overconfidence is worse. And then complacency. Many times people say, I just want a proofreader. You know, just here's my paper, read it for 1 hour, just quickly. My English, it's good enough. I don't need, you know, don't spend too much time fixing it. You know, it's okay. It's good enough. And we say that, but many times for an editor, you read it and you will see what I'm talking about. Next. So, we've seen the problems that are common in Indonesian writing. And the truth is that, again, we have to accept that we need an editor. I need an editor. In fact, when I'm writing, I will write an article that I'm satisfied with, and then my boss will come back to me and say, wrong, 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 this is not good enough. So even when I am writing and I'm satisfied with my writing, I know that my boss is not satisfied with it. Because again, we all need another person helping us. A colleague to read the paper, an editor to fix it. But we have to first be aware of it. And this is the value of self-awareness. It allows us to identify the following. When we need an editor. So again, if our writing is good enough, we have to know that it is good enough. If it is not good enough, we have to know that it is not good enough. What we are good at. So, if we are aware of our strengths and weaknesses, we know what we are good at, we know what we are not good at, and then, if we look at the other side of it, what's the danger of a lack of self-awareness? It is harmful because it prevents you from progressing. So your goal from today should be, tomorrow I want to be a better writer, and the day after that even better, and then in 1 year, in 2 years, a really good writer. But without self-awareness, you will never improve, and it wastes everyone's time. Let's look at this. Here is a paper where it was requested specifically only for proofreading. So they say, it's good enough, I'm satisfied with it, it's almost ready to publish, please look at it quickly and just, fix it very quickly because it's good enough, it's okay, ora popo. But in the title of this paper that is almost ready to publish, there's a misspelling. Schizophrenia is an Indonesian word, not an English word. And then I've redacted to protect the identity of the person, but after the very first sentence, I looked at the first sentence and I said, I will not continue because clearly this is not ready for proofreading. This is not ready for publication. This needs an editor to sit down with the author and say, let me help you. What do you mean? Because here, clearly, the author is not ready to submit this. But because there is a lack of self-awareness, because there's a complacency there, they are wasting my time by saying, here, spend a few hours on this only. No, that's a waste of a few hours because clearly this is not what you need. So in this case, I took one sentence. I agreed to edit the whole abstract, but I took one sentence. Technically, I did 2 sentences. But after the first sentence, I said, I'm done. I am not going to continue. And I returned the paper and I said, you don't need a proofreader. You need an editor. Lack of self-awareness wasted my time and their time. Next, so if we know that our writing needs to be improved, we can take steps to address it. And by doing that, we make it easier for a journal to assess it. The value of good writing is that it is easier to read. Then, it is easier for an editor to fix because we are addressing the problems that we can fix and we leave the difficult ones to an editor. Because as writers, our responsibilities are A, to be precise. We will discuss this. B, to be consistent, something that you can do. And C, to be clear. I think the battery is dying. Okay, yeah.
I think it's better.
Thanks. So, now nice and loud again. So, self-awareness. Let's assume that we have self-awareness. We know we need an editor and we want to improve. Take the next step of evaluating our own work. And we can ask simple questions. And I now want to say that, in fact, You might think that you do not have these problems, but think twice and consider that you might, because every single author whom I have edited did not know what they meant until I asked them, because they did not evaluate themselves. Let's look at some questions we can ask about our manuscript. The first question, did I calculate my data correctly? This should be simple, right? We input data into a program, we take the results, we put them into our manuscript, and we submit the paper. In this case, the author miscalculated their own data. Now, a lazy editor, a cheap editor, Inago maybe, will not check the data for you. In this case, I was very kind to the client and I checked the tables and I realized that in fact there's something wrong there. So I asked him, is this data correct? And he looked at it and he said, no, in fact I've miscalculated it. So we then spent many days sitting together doing his data analysis. So I think he should have made me the co-author of his paper, because I also did the analysis with him. So in this case, it's a simple question, but we have to ask ourselves this question, because we assume that we've done things correctly, but then a reviewer might catch it and say, this is wrong. And this is a question that you can ask yourself without needing an editor. The next question, am I presenting my data ethically? Now, again, most people don't care about ethics maybe. They just want to publish a manuscript, get funding for the next research. But ethics does matter, and if you are publishing in a journal that is reputable, they are going to notice this and a reviewer will notice it. A good editor, in this case me, does notice it. And if we look at this example, they only present the positive results. They did not want to publish the negative results of the research. And I had to say, I think you should go back, recalculate your data, include the negative results. And in this case, they agreed, and we spent many days again discussing and rewriting the manuscript to present the negative results as well, because they were afraid of showing the negative results. But again, your responsibility as a scientist, and I don't need to say this, but your responsibility as a scientist is to be honest. Positive and negative does not matter. You must report your research, even if it is negative. And this is something that people are afraid of doing, and an editor has to spend time discussing with them. Next, am I using the correct terminology? So again, this is a problem that we see, inconsistent use of terminology. Look at all those colors. You know, it gives me a headache. Looking at that, it's like a rainbow. And it's something that is so simple to fix, because you are the researcher, you are the expert in your field, not me. So me, I'm not an expert, and yet I am the one who is noticing your own writing is incorrect. And again, ask yourself, go back to your manuscript after this, look at the terms you are using, and consider, is it inconsistent? Is the spelling different maybe? Are you using different terms that should be the same ones? Things like that. Next, am I really using the correct terminology? Again, we think of something so simple, the largest fish is not the same as the longest fish. Largest, besar? I don't know longest in Indonesian. Huh? Yes, that. So, largest, longest, they mean different things. And in this case, the author thinks they are using the correct terms when in fact they are not. And this is the value of an editor who can say, do you mean that? and then the author says, actually no, and we fix it together. So think about this. Really think about it. Am I using the correct terms? And consistently. Okay, and then again, am I being consistent in the usage? Because if we look at those comments, this is inconsistent. This is also inconsistent. Changing to be consistent. Changing to be consistent. So again, I'm being serious when I say it is a problem. Because you start your paper and you take many months to write it, maybe, and by the end of it, it is not the same manuscript when you started. You have to go back, read it from the beginning, and rewrite it in some parts to be consistent across it. Because not doing that wastes people's time. All of these questions, am I being consistent? Am I using the right terms? Have I calculated my data correctly? These are all questions that you can ask and answer yourself. And I really want to emphasize this because people think that English is all about having pretty sentences. In fact, specifically in academic writing especially, it is about being as efficient as possible when we are communicating our research. So these questions do not need to be answered by an editor. They can be fixed directly by you so that when you want to get an editor, they only need to fix the other problems. It saves everyone's time. Again, if you do not answer these questions, if you have inconsistent terms, it is bad writing. If you miscalculate your data, your paper, if it is a good journal, will be rejected. And it wastes the reviewer's time, it wastes the editor's time, and it wastes your time. And if you are making these simple mistakes, if you're not asking yourself if you're being consistent, then when the time comes to get an editor, they're going to spend more time reading your work, and they're going to charge you a higher fee because you're wasting their time. Always remember, I can forgive bad English, right? So if we look at the papers with lots of colors, at the end of the day, I'm happy to help because my Indonesian is not good. So I would be a hypocrite if I say, you must have perfect English. So I can forgive bad academic writing, but bad science is not forgivable. That is the one thing that you must get right. And many times people do bad science in their manuscript. And then the onus falls onto the editor to help them fix it, taking way more time than is necessary. Again, an editor can help you with your English, but not your research. So it is not my responsibility to help you calculate your data. I do it because I'm nice. But it's not my responsibility. And then your first priority should be the content of the manuscript, not the English itself. Think first about the content. Communicate your research first, then think about having nice, flowery prose afterwards. And contrary to popular belief, many people think, including native speakers, I read many papers by native speakers whose writing is awful because they think that they must have the most complex and interesting writing on the planet, because they think that, hey, a good academic writer must sound smart and use big words. But no. The essence of good academic writing is that it is efficient and concise and precise, and it communicates your research as efficiently as possible. It's not about how pretty the sentence is, it's about how efficient you are. Which is a point that I just made. Okay. Now, knowing all of that, can you take your laptops out or phones? Yeah. You're not connected. Yeah, mine is slow. You got to connect to game hotspot. So I want to reiterate why. Maybe you came here and you're expecting me to give you some advice on writing better, fixing verbs and prepositions. But the truth is that we don't have a lot of time, so I have to pick and choose what I want to help you with. And the first thing that I want to prioritize is substance over style, is content over style, because it is often overlooked. And to be clear, the difference between substance and style, and substance is the meaning of something and style is what it looks like. And many people, when they want better English, they think about the style. They think about how can I make my sentences better, but they don't think about how can I make my manuscript better. And this is the thing that I really want to prioritize because it is always overlooked by every single writer. Fixing the content of your article should be a first priority. So the lesson you take from this so far should be, here are things that I can do to improve my manuscript that an editor does not need to do. I can improve my manuscript by being more consistent, by checking that I'm using the right terms, and by being more clear in what I want to say, not overwriting sentences, not going past the bus stop, because the next step is fixable. And it's not fixable, it does not need me to sit down with you and say, let's check your data. Let's check what terms you mean. So in this part, we will look at that, at some basic things, so like grammar, word usage, clarity, cohesion, coherence, logical flow, and structure.
Nggak bisa semuanya kita cakup hari ini karena cuma belajar. Jadi ini sebetulnya semuanya harus dicakup. Kalau memperbaiki kita sebisanya dulu. I'm just saying that we have just set basically to meet time.
Yes, I said already. Again, I really want to be clear and I really want to emphasize content is the most important. And I get such a headache from reading papers where the authors don't care about the content. And it's difficult for an editor to care more about the research than the author. Because in my case, if someone comes to me and says, you know, please fix my English, I always say, do you really want me to fix your English? Because I am a hard person to work with. Because if I spend my time doing something, I want to have the best possible job out of it. And if you don't believe me, you can ask my two colleagues there about how hard I am in having the best possible product. And that's why I really want to emphasize it, because if you have good content, if you have good science in your paper, then the next step is really easy. Because it is just fixing some words. And that's much easier than fixing content, because only you can know what you want to say. An editor cannot know that. So really, content is so important. Now, in this exercise, visit this link. Oh yeah, that works. Unfortunately, I don't think it will be as good on phones. Hopefully it's okay. Phones. This is a Google Doc.
ini ada 3 bagian, harus disebutkan 3 bagian. Yang 2 bagian punyanya dia, yang bagian ketiga itu dijawab dalam bahasa Indonesia. Silahkan pilih topik itu, topiknya saya asal pilih, tapi boleh topik yang lainnya yang berbeda, terserah. Pokoknya menulis sesuatu di situ. Nah, itu topiknya boleh ada yang selain apa yang saya tulis itu. Pokoknya nulis. Dan jangan banyak-banyak.
Are you signing to UGM? Just swap the laptops then. Oh, because you're connected to hotspots and mine is 2G.
No, you want use mine?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just for this, yeah. It's okay.
Oh, you want to connect it?
No, it's fine.
Yeah, you're late. It's already like 7 people or so.
Yeah, that's why I told you my.
Oh, yes, sure. The address, the bit.ly.
Oh. Now, I want to be clear. You should be writing as long a sentence as possible. If you write a short sentence, then I cannot help you as much. So if you want to improve, there is a positive correlation between improvement and length of sentence. The longer the sentence, the more we can look at.
Number 2. Okay, the question is briefly describe your current research interest, not mention. Describe. Jadi dideskripsikan research interestnya apa, bukan biologi, bukan, itu bukan describe, itu menyebut.
It's to explain the positive correlation between length of sentence and improvement.
Okay.
The longer the sentence, the more we can help. I said already.
Okay, the longer the sentence,
The more we can help you.
yeah, the more we can help you. The shorter the sentence, it's basically useless.
What is going on? I guess my Google Doc is not used to this many people. This many people.
Really? It's not that many.
No, it's weird. It's bugging out. So, Afiyati, who is that? Okay. So, the first thing that we can quickly identify is that it is missing a period at the end. Something simple like that. Of course, in this case, it's okay. It's okay to make that mistake. It's just a simple sentence. But in academic writing, I do sometimes encounter people forgetting to put periods. Now, as for the rest of it, technically, it's okay. There's no grammatical problems there. But if we wanted to make the sentence better, and this is the mistake that I think everyone made, is to say, my favorite hobby is swimming. Yes. To give it a more full answer, if someone asks you a question like, what's your favorite hobby? You can say quickly, swimming. But, yeah. but to make a nice full sentence, we just reply to the question with the question. My favorite hobby is swimming. My favorite food is not durian. And because it makes me healthy, the key thing to remember is the word it. Again, it refers to something. If we do not have the reference point, we don't know what it refers to. Again, while it was eating his noodles, the cockroach peed in his tea. It, in this case, refers to swimming, and that's okay. But remember, if you are writing a long paragraph and you say it, like it can be explained by something, you have to be careful because the reader might be confused about what it is referring to. In this case, we can see swimming, and the very next word is it. So I, as the reader, know that it, well, not second next word because it's in the next one, but because I know that swimming came right before the word it, that it is referring to swimming. But if you are worried about that, you can say, my favorite hobby is swimming because it makes me healthier, as one sentence instead of two sentences here. Then it is more cohesive. And because is connecting the term swimming and connecting the clause makes me healthy.
Yes, because it's not a lot after a period.
Modern English is more fungible.
Yes, but it doesn't make sense.
I'm not going to discuss that. The same thing as but. Okay, and we can always improve it to say, my favorite hobby is swimming because I want to be healthy, or because swimming makes me healthier. And a key thing there is that if you say healthier, it implies that you are already healthy. So you are simply going from healthy to healthier. So you're improving your current state of health. Whereas it makes me healthy is less descriptive, and it simply says healthy, which does not imply anything about you. Okay. Rahmadi? Okay. So again, my favorite hobby. Now, how is computer a hobby? Well, a computer is an object, not something you do. So my favorite hobby is gaming. That's correct. Easy coding. Why easy coding?
Because if hard doesn't work.
So you're too lazy for hard coding? Again, that's, easy coding implies something, right? Whereas you can say coding, perfectly fine. Because it makes me curious about computer. Again, computer is an object. You can say computers as the mass noun, and not mass noun, but as a plural, then it's better, because if we say computer in the singular, it needs an article. So
Yeah, hold on, you can type.
So, like that, see? So, if you say computer, it needs an article before it because it's in the singular. So it's a computer or the computer. But I think you mean computers, right?
Yeah.
And then, again, if we want to be more descriptive, research is vague, very broad. So you can specify there what kind of research. And again, this goes to the point of clarity. By saying it makes me curious about computers and computer research, for example, then we are specifying, and the reader understands more clearly what kind of research we mean. And by having better clarity, simply adding another word before research makes it more clear, makes the writing better.
I think I don't know what he means by curious though. Curious maksudnya apa di sini? Okay. The curious, the first sentence, and curious for the first sentence is correct.
The second one is lots of problems.
Yes.
It's okay to say curious, but to take part is not what you mean. What you mean is taking part. So I'm curious about doing something. So I'm curious about walking, about trekking, about going to the market, about taking part. And now, you say a part. Do you mean part or a part?
Taking apart means tearing apart.
Yeah.
Taking part or taking apart?
So,
Okay.
taking apart means disassembling.
Computers.
Or do you mean a part or a part?
Disassemble the system software game.
So, taking part in.
Yes.
Yeah. So, we have in
Involved. Okay.
we'll get there. So,
No, I'm just taking.
So taking part in is the same as being engaged in or about doing. So I'm curious about doing something. Now, the next part, taking part in the system game software. Let's look at the term system. It's a noun. Game is a noun. Software is a noun. Those are three nouns after each other, which you cannot do. That's illegal in English writing. So you have to change that. So let's think about this. If you are taking part in, you have to be taking part in an activity. So what activity is it? Developing games?
Reversing the game or something like that.
Why do you not simply say that? So in this case, we can simply replace all of that. I'm also curious about reverse engineering game software. And in this case, we can say game software because there are many types of software, and game simply modifies software and functions as the adjective. So what type of software? Game software. Not, for example, simulation software, but video gaming software. We can also say gaming, it would be much better, gaming software. Or if we want to remove software, we can simply say reverse engineering games. Because games are software. In this context, it's okay to say games, because I know you don't mean Dakan?
Dakan.
Dakan, right?
Dakan.
So Dakan is not software.
Dakan.
And I know from the context of computers, you can simply say video games. Easy enough. So we can see that I made the sentence shorter by removing taking part in system game software. Simply making the sentence shorter solves all of the problems. Like, simply that. I'm also curious about reverse engineering games. Simple. The sentence is much simpler and more effective. Okay, Aksen. My favorite hobby is traveling, correct, because I will get a new experience by visiting a new place. The truth is that this is perfectly functional English. Aksen learns from speaking English to me, so she's cheating a little bit. She has experience. So I'm going to go over her because she has enough training from me. But again, this is a good thing. When the English has no functional problems, then I don't need to focus on fixing it. I can focus on improving it. So we can say, instead of because I will get a new experience, you can say because I am interested in gaining new experiences from visiting new places. Now the sentence is better. And this is the value of having good basic English, which I can then build on top of, because the foundation is good enough. We don't need to fix the foundation, simply make the sentence better. So Tika.
The question is, what's your favorite hobby? It is in singular, so the answer should be one only. Why one answer there
Rahmadi?
tell many answers
Yeah.
about experiment.
Oh,
Well, for this exercise, I'm willing to forgive them because most people have multiple hobbies, right? And sometimes they cannot choose one. Technically, yeah, you should say only one thing, but for this exercise, it's fine. It's, you know,
It's okay regarding to the question.
if you say something like, we're going to get to it, but like my second hobby is swimming, like that, we can say that the author, who is Feriawan? Okay, we can say that Feriawan is a little arrogant by assuming that I want to know two hobbies instead of one. And so we can get something about his character from the answer. But if I forgive his arrogance, then it is okay to give two answers. It's fine. But if maybe I am a strict assessor for his, you know, whether he's going to be accepted into my university, maybe I will say no.
Yeah,
I said one, and I reject you because you gave two. So it depends on how lenient I am. So Tika, singing because I can express myself. Again, the English is fundamentally good, so nothing to fix, but we can improve if we want. But again, like that's, yeah, because I can express myself. That's good. Nilna?
Yeah.
Okay. So traveling because it provides a lot of experiences about things I've never thought before. Now, again, period in the end.
double L. Which one is which?
Different
yeah,
language.
I know. Which one is which?
Just to briefly comment, because this is not really that important, but Aksun said traveling with one L, and Nilna says traveling with two L's. One is British English, one is American English. If you're submitting to a journal, some of them require specific English. You have to fit them. Some journals don't have a requirement. As an editor, the only thing that I demand from you is consistency. And this again goes back to the same thing as using similar terminology. This is the same thing. If you are writing about traveling and in your introduction you use one L, but in the methods you use two L's, then I have to ask you, do you want British English or American English? Now you are wasting my time as an editor because now we need to discuss it. And I have to say, okay, so they want this kind of English, and in addition to that, I also have to now read the whole manuscript and check, spending more time because I have to look more minutely for all instances of different forms of English. So by being consistent in the way you are spelling terms like traveling for American or British English, it's a really simple thing to do, just being consistent. That's the only thing that matters. And many journals have the same requirement. If you are consistent, that's all they want. It doesn't matter if you're doing British or English. Now, I would say again, good fundamental English, but I've never thought before we would have to have of. I've never thought of before.
That's in English.
Yeah. Can you explain it?
Oke, ini salah satu kasus basic English-nya, fundamentalnya sudah benar. Dia agak sudah terlalu lama di Indonesia, jadi agak kadang-kadang sensitivitas terhadap Indo-English-nya agak terlalu besar. Jadi saya bilang ini bahasa Inggrisnya benar, tetapi orang native tidak akan bisa. I've never thought of before. Ini bahasa Inggrisnya gramatiknya benar, yang disampaikan dipahami, tetapi native speaker biasanya tidak bilang I've never thought of before.
What would you say? Experiences about?
Let's think of this. An experience is something that you experience, and thought of is something you think. So the message is a little bit mixed there, because you travel and you get an experience that you've never thought of before. it's not, again, I would say that it's not precise English. Whereas you could be saying like Aksen, because it provides a lot of experiences. To be more simple, we can say because it provides a lot of new experiences. But if you want to say I've never thought of, because again, the implication of saying I've never thought of it means it is an experience that I could never dream of.
Yeah.
For example, so me seeing a coral reef, the beauty of the coral reef is greater than I can imagine.
Yeah.
So the value of traveling is that I can experience something that I've never imagined before. And we can improve on that by saying it provides a lot of experiences that is it? Okay. Okay. So it provides a lot of experience that I've never thought of before. You know, again, it's just imprecise. It's technically, yeah, it's correct, but not precise. And I have to think, okay, what does she mean? And simply saying new experiences or provides experiences that surpass my imagination. More flowery English there, but less confusion, more precise as well. And Peningkatan? Okay. So photography, the first thing we do is we fix the spelling. Wonderful is one. So photography, because the world is wonderful. Technically, functionally correct, yes, it's good enough. And if we are satisfied with it, perfectly fine, but we can improve it. And we can think, okay, how can we expand on it? Because the world is wonderful and I want to document the beauty. So we can make the sentence better, in this case by making it longer, and saying, okay, the world is wonderful, but so what? How does it impact my photography? So you say, my favorite hobby is photography because I want to capture the beauty of the world. Because the world is wonderful and I want to capture a snapshot of the wonder. Because the world is wonderful and I want to show other people the wonder that I experience.
Can I say something?
Saya yang agak galak di sini. Saya sering banyak sekali mendapatkan hal seperti ini, contoh seperti ini, saya paham maksudnya, tetapi sebagai suatu kalimat ini tidak, flow-nya tidak bagus. Dalam arti seperti ini, saya paham buktinya apa, fotografi, oke, mengapa? Sebab dunia indah. Hubungan dunia indah sama fotografi apa? Nah, itu yang perlu ditambahkan di tengahnya. The relationship between photography and wonderful world is that, so what
technically
is
correct.
Yeah, technically correct. We understand what it means, but you need something to connect photography. Now, this is what you call it, coherence, whatever.
Coherence.
But photography, because I want to capture the beauty of the world, that makes sense because the capture function in the photography. Jadi fungsi capture-nya itu ada di fotografi, tetapi dunia indah tidak ada hubungannya sama fotografi. Ini yang kadang-kadang karena kita berpikir bahwa kita paham apa yang mau kita katakan, kita berpikir orang juga akan paham. Walaupun untuk ini simpel, kita memang paham. Tetapi kalau untuk hal-hal yang teknis, itu kan jadi efeknya lebih fatal.
Okay. Chayo? Okay. So, watching a science fiction movie, correct, because it is somehow related. Do you know the meaning of the word somehow? Yeah. Yeah, well, somehow is we don't know the exact reason why, right? So fiction movie.
Maunya bilang apa ya dengan somehow?
Ini akan memberikan ide untuk bisa saya juga guys.
Jadi somehow ini untuk somehow okay, but what he means actually correct. He wants to say somehow, so it's just a sentence.
Yes.
Jadi memang maksudnya mau bilang somehow, tapi sentence-nya I think. Yeah, but yeah. Somehow.
The problem with somehow is that it does not fit
With the sentence.
the sentence. Yeah. Let's look at we add a period in the end. If we ignore somehow, because it is related to, not with, related to possible future science. So possible is modifying future. So you're saying future science that might happen. So we have possible, which is already potential but not factual. So it is future science that might not happen. So it's a weak word. You are qualifying future science by saying future science that might not happen. So you have something that is making it weaker, and then you have somehow it makes it even weaker. So possible already fits what you want to say, because you are saying future science that might not happen. By somehow, you're modifying related. So it is somehow related means that it might not be related to possible future science. When in fact, you do mean that it is related to possible, because somehow modifying related, it means that if we look at it.
It's in English though.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll get it later.
Okay, so somehow related means it might not be related. But the truth is that in this case, all science fiction is related to current science. If we look at Interstellar, Interstellar is about something that is not happening right now, right? It's about, have you seen Interstellar? The movie? No.
Interstellar.
Okay. Interstellar is about, yes, so Interstellar is about visiting a black hole. Currently humans have not done that, but the science is possible in the future. So saying somehow related is not needed, because you can say I enjoy watching a science fiction movie because it is related to the possibilities of the future. And saying somehow related means that it is maybe not related, when in fact all science fiction is related to science and possible future science. If you maybe talked about a different kind of fiction movie, like a fantasy movie, fantasy like Lord of the Rings has no connection to science. So now we could say somehow related, but in the case of science fiction specifically, somehow is not needed.
Ini bagian bahasa Indonesianya. Kalau saya tanya, hobinya apa? Jawabnya science fiction. Mengapa senang science fiction movie? Oke.
Memberikan ide pada user saya.
Jawabannya tidak salah. Saya cuma bertanyakan hobinya nonton science fiction. Mengapa senang science fiction movie? Karena science fiction movie fokusnya kan diri sendiri. Mengapa saya menyukai science fiction movie? Karena fokus sendiri.
Ya, karena saya percaya bahwa usernya science fiction itu bisa memberikan ide pada user saya.
Oke, ya. Oke, jadi yang saya lakukan ini adalah bahwa ini yang disampaikan di sini benar kan itu kan apa namanya opinion, tapi cara mengungkapkan opinionnya pendapatnya itu yang penting untuk menghubungkan apa yang ditanyakan dengan apa yang disampaikan di sini. Saat ini jawaban ini itu benar bahasa Inggrisnya, tetapi logika penyampaiannya seperti fotografi tadi ada yang bolong di tengah. Artinya adalah hobi saya menonton science fiction movie. Mengapa? Karena science fiction movie itu berhubungan dengan masa depan. Saya tidak tanyakan mengenai science fiction movie-nya. Yang saya tanyakan adalah kenapa suka science fiction movie. Dan ini kebanyakan yang menjadi permasalahan dalam penulisan adalah saat yang menulis itu lupa yang ditanyakan siapa, yang objeknya yang mana. Jadi ini barang-barang sepele, bukan bahasa Inggrisnya seperti bisa diperhatikan. Yang permasalahan bukan bahasa Inggrisnya, tapi bagaimana menyampaikan sesuai dengan apa yang mau disampaikan. Jadi ini cuma saya dari sisi saya seperti itu. I'm just explaining that if asking if you like science fiction movie, why? because science fiction movie makes me something instead of it is caused me the future. So basically English is okay, but the reasoning itself is the connections.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I think the microphone is dying.
You can just speak loudly.
If we want to keep what you're saying, then we can keep what you say there. So because it is related to possible future science, if we modify it a little bit, it does change the meaning of what you're saying. And in this case, like if I'm the editor, I have to ask you if it's okay to say this. But like if we change the meaning a little bit, we can say, because it explores the possibilities of future science and or technology. So it's not exactly what you mean, but the English is good. And that's the balance there. Because again, Leily is correct. Like, if the reasoning is better, then English can also be better. So, Feria 1. Reading a fiction story, really easy. Fiction is already a story. So we don't need story. And fiction itself is a mass noun, so we don't need a fiction, so reading fiction. That's simple. Reading fiction because it is bring me now. Is a verb. Bring is also a verb. So we have to choose which verbs we want there.
Just use this thingy. Use the mouse.
So this one is tricky to fix. More batteries. Okay. Okay, if we think about this. Okay, describing future science and technology, that's a type of fiction, right? That's sci-fi, like that. And in this case, the question is, do you want to specify? Because we can say, I enjoy reading fiction because I like reading stories that are fantastical.
Sama seperti komen saya yang sini tadinya.
If we want to keep future science and technology, did you just copy what he said?
The same hobby, just
Yeah.
the same hobby.
So we say, okay, reading science fiction. Yeah. Same interest, right? Yeah.
The same promoter.
So, it is bring me is very, very incorrect. For a fact, we will remove it is. And we will remove bring me, because when you say bring me to describing, the first thing I would want to fix is describing.
It's in English, no?
It's in English. And if we look at it, bring me... The implication of bring me to describing, it implies that you describe the future science and technology, whereas you mean the science fiction is describing the future science and technology, right? Not you. So we have to change that because that's not what you mean. And you can say something like, because it describes future science and technology, like that. Now that is correct. My second hobby, singular, because it is one, only swimming. So my second hobby is swimming because it is good for my health and refresh my mind. And again, if we think refresh is in singular, so it has to be refreshes my mind. It refreshes my mind. And again, just to be clear, this is more of a metaphysical answer because good for your health is true physically, but refreshes your mind is not maybe physically true because it is only something that you can experience. If you swim every day and suddenly you have muscles, I can see that. But if your mind is refreshed, I cannot see that. But it is correct. You can say that. But just to be clear, the implication is different. One is objective and one is subjective. And again, yes, that's not great English that I want to read in a popular novel, but the English is functionally good and it explains clearly what you mean.
Maksudnya dengan dasar English bagus, nanti kalau diberikan ke editor, editor bisa memperbaiki jadi kalimat yang lebih bagus, itu yang menguntungkan. Kalau tidak harus memperbaiki dari nolnya. Jadi maksudnya itu.
Daddy? Okay. So, the first thing we can do is pretty easy. It is because. You understand subject, verb, and object, right? So, subject, verb, and object is the clause that we have. I eat mie goreng. I eat mie goreng. SVO. And it is because now makes this one clause. But because you say playing badminton, comma, it means you want to continue the sentence. And the problem is that playing badminton means we have there playing badminton, verb, object, and you simply have to complete the clause. Now, the simple solution is to delete it is, like that, because it is simply a continuation of playing badminton. If we make it a new sentence, this is correct. But I hate seeing it because it's vague. If we say this, it is more clear because this is playing badminton. So this is because means I enjoy playing badminton because. They are two sentences, but they communicate the same thing. This is because communicates the exact same thing as saying playing badminton because I can. We'll do the rest. So it is no. Because it is following something else with a comma. With a period, meaning it is a new sentence, yes. So never say it is after a comma, unless you have already completed the clause. So playing badminton, no. I will say just a fixed rule. Don't say it is after a comma. Just avoid it.
Just easier.
And then, because I can have fun, and so this is in English.
Yeah.
He's combining English and Indonesian. And I will say that the first time I edited someone Indonesian, I did have to ask them, what is done? And then I said Dan. So what is Dan? And then they said, oh, that's and in Indonesian. And then now I know, okay, if I say dan, they mean and. But this is because I've been living in Indonesia. I have edited Indonesian authors for
10 years.
9 years.
Okay.
And I have experience with Indonesian authors. I can guarantee you 100%. If you go to Inago, for example, most of the editors for Inago are either Indian or American or British or Canadian or Australian, but they're not Indonesian. And most of these authors, probably 99.9999999%, don't live in Indonesia. So if you submit your paper to Inago, the editor is going to see it and they're going to think, what is Dan? What do they mean? Because,
who is Dan?
Or who is Dan? You can, Dan is the name of a person. So maybe they think, and so luckily, because I live in Indonesia, I know you mean and, but you have to expect a native speaker who does not speak Indonesian, who does not know Indonesians, which is most native speakers in the world, they cannot help you with this. So you cannot rely on them to fix your misspelling. So you have to try as much as possible to write in English. And don't expect the editor to fix your Indonesian writing. Because I can have fun and meet up with friends. Now, simply fixing the clause issue, it is because, and fixing and, the sentence now makes perfect sense.
Not good, but perfect sense.
Well, we can say can meet up with my friends to be more clear, but it's not, it makes sense. It's, again, it's functional English, it's good.
You're so lenient.
I'm not your professor, so I don't need to be more strict.
Saya lebih ketat dari dia. Yes.
But again, the key part is we fix the it is because, simple thing. We fix the done to and, simple thing. Now the English is good enough for me to polish and improve on. The foundation is now good, we can make it better. That's the key part, make the foundation good. Agus? No. Yeah, Agus? Okay. So fishing on the beach. Okay.
There is fish on the beach.
So you do not mean fishing on a boat? Yes? No? You mean fishing on the beach only?
In this sentence, on the beach.
Maksudnya berdiri di pinggir pantai, kayaknya masuk ke laut. Okay, so he's not fishing on the beach, he's fishing on the,
shore?
basically, yeah, on the shore, and then the swimming with the marine side. That's not the outside.
Do you go to a specific beach?
Pergi ke pantai tertentu, favoritnya di mana?
Pergi ke pantai.
Pantai mana yang senangi, yang disenangi? Spesifik pantai di mana?
Parangtritis Beach.
Parangtritis ada ikannya apa?
This one is much better. By being more specific and saying fishing at Parangtritis Beach, we avoid the problem of saying fishing on the beach. It is much more clear.
What does fishing on the beach mean? You have to explain it because it's related.
Well, yeah, I mean, you don't need to be specific. If you don't want to say the beach, it's okay. But maybe better to say fishing when I go to the beach, or going to the beach and fishing, instead of saying on the beach, because the implication is always on the beach. And that creates, again, if you think about it, imagine to yourself a person fishing on the beach, right? When we read this, playing badminton, we can imagine Daddy, right? And that's the point of writing, right? Is to imagine. We're imagining him playing badminton. And in this case, we imagine fishing on the beach. And it just feels funny because a beach is so expansive. And when you stand on the beach, it's like, it's just, it doesn't feel correct, you know? And so we avoid the problem by removing on and saying something else. We avoid the problem of having a funny image in our head. Because again, while eating his noodles, the cockroach peed in his tea is not an image you want in your head. So in this case, if we think about what you're imagining when you're going to the beach, fishing on the beach just doesn't feel right. And it's just a classic example of if I'm the editor, then I'm going to have to sit there and think, what do you mean on the beach? Because my first thought was, so not on the boat?
Not on the pond?
Not in the pond? So yeah, so we remove the problem and it just makes it much better. And then a simple thing is an interesting activity. Oh, yeah. Because it is an interesting activity. We have activity, which is the noun, and interesting is the adjective modifying the noun, but we still need an, or the. And in this case, it is an interesting activity. And now we have a classic overwriting sentence. Because it is an interesting activity. For socialize with my friend, now we imagine this. You are fishing on the beach. This is what I have in my head. So we have Agus goes to Parangtritis, he's fishing, and then suddenly out of nowhere, his friend shows up. because I'm reading the sentence, I'm seeing, okay, fishing and paratritis, it's interesting, and then suddenly there's a friend. So this is what we have of overwriting the sentence. It should finish at the end of an interesting activity. If we want to include the friend, then we have to extend it, and we can say, like that. So then we can say, okay, so he's going to paratritis, he's fishing, and in addition, he likes socializing with his friend. So it is now extra information that is added as opposed to the sentence being overwritten. So the for socialize with my friend is very, very bad.
Paham kan ya bagian overwriting ya? Jadi kita orang Indonesia kecenderungannya nggak tahu kapan ngerem. Jadi kebanyakan seperti itu. Jadi kalimatnya sudah selesai, tapi karena terlalu pendek kita berpikir itu mesti nggak bagus, kan? Terus jadi melanjutkan lagi. Nah itu kecenderungan kita nggak tahu kapan ngerem. Dan yang dalam hal ini permasalahannya adalah tadi for socializing.
Wait, that's
No, it's fine. No, for socialize with my friend tadi itu kan tidak ada hubungannya sama interesting activity. Itu yang jadi masalah maksudnya.
Do you explain that actually it modifies interesting activity?
Yes, jadi
it means only
interesting activity of the social friend. Yes.
If you say it is an interesting activity for socializing with my friend, it means that playing badminton is not an interesting activity. So by adding the extra information, by qualifying that, saying it is an interesting activity for socializing with my friend, it means that when I want to socialize with my friend, I only go fishing. We do not play badminton, we do not play soccer. I only go fishing because that is the interesting activity for that. So actually, is that what you mean? So you're saying that it is an interesting activity for socializing with your friend. It means that you only fish with your friend. Do you fish alone? Do you fish because you want to be with your friend?
Yes.
Or do you fish because you enjoy fishing?
Both.
Both.
Indonesian.
Then we will say it is an interesting activity and I enjoy socializing with my friend who fishes with me. Like that. It is two things. By saying an interesting activity for socializing with my friend, you're emphasizing the socializing with your friend, not the fishing. Yeah. You want to continue?
No, it's fine.
Okay. Man?
Yeah, deleted that last sentence.
Browsing what? The internet? Yeah.
Sorry, soalnya kalau di ekologi browsing itu makan rumput.
Yes.
In ecology it means the internet.
And you're not a goat, so browsing the internet. Now, if we think about this, think about consistency. Browsing, increasing. Yeah. That's simple. So browsing the internet and increasing my insight. Now, again, we have overwriting the sentence. Because browsing the internet and increasing my insight, what do you have in your head? We are imagining a man on the internet. We are imagining him increasing his insight. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, chemical science. So now we have to change everything. We're thinking, wait, what's the connection of chemical science to browsing the internet?
About chemical.
Okay.
Browsing the internet.
Maybe you say increasing my insight about chemical science, not especially. So
Increasing my insight on chemical sciences through browsing the internet. So which one is the hobby?
well, he's browsing the internet for chemical science.
Okay.
Again, I mean, we could always say your favorite hobby is increasing your insight. We can remove browsing the internet.
Let me ask. Jadi hobinya browsing internet atau meningkatkan insight di chemical sciences?
Sebenarnya apa?
Hah?
Chemical science-nya, tapi karena yang paling bisa diakses itu lewat internet.
Oke.
Makanya.
Oke. Iya. You say this the chemical sciences is the main target.
Yeah,
The
internet is the tool.
Yeah.
So what you mean is using the internet to increase my insight about chemical science. Just to be clear, my insight about
or insight itself.
yeah, insight is a more subjective thing than, for example, knowledge. Insight is like wisdom. We cannot quantify wisdom. So, just to be clear, so when you're saying your insight about chemical knowledge, chemical science, you are not saying knowledge, you're saying insights, sort of like wisdom. So it is increasing the things you know about it, but it's on a more arcane, subjective level than an objective level, okay? And do you mean the subjective side or objective? Objective.
It's just a knowledge.
So that is much more clear now, my knowledge about chemical science. And I understand insight is a very nice word, much better than knowledge. But unfortunately, knowledge is more clear than insight. And in academic writing, we must prioritize clarity over prettiness. It's not a fashion contest. So I choose this. I assume chose, past tense, right? I chose this because now, if we think about this, interest here functions as the verb, but you cannot interest something. I walk, I sit, I interest?
Yes, you interest me, for example.
I interest you, but I don't interest myself unless I'm very egotistical. But that's not what you mean. You don't mean I interest, you mean I am interested.
Interest artinya saya menarik seseorang, perhatian seseorang.
So, I chose this because I am interested about in is better, out about about is perfectly fine, in is better. And again, you're interested, and this is something that I forgive you 100% for not knowing, because English is so much about feeling. And again, you cannot go home today and suddenly have perfect English. It's simply about trying to get the nuance, and it's something that, you know, like me trying to speak Bahasa Jawa, it will take me a very long time to learn it. And then there's also high Javanese and low Javanese. And it's something that's about feeling, but I'm interested in doing something, so I'm interested in changing something. I'm interested in listening, I'm interested in watching. So when you say interested in, it must be an ing word. I'm interested in changing something to be something never I think before now.
It's the same like the previous one, the imagination.
Yeah. First of all, I would recommend to avoid repetition of the same word in the same sentence. Usually the same paragraph, but in the same sentence, try to avoid it as much as possible. Changing something to be something. Something can be anything in the whole universe. So there's no clarity there. And then something to be something else, it's lack of clarity on top of lack of clarity. So it's two universes on top of each other that mean anything. So we have to be more clear. So in changing what? What do you want to change?
It's actually something to something.
Do you mean like
reaction.
changing one element into another element?
Yes, chemical reaction.
Like that. So we can say something because I'm interested in chemical reactions. Or if you want to say something into something, we will have to say changing something into, and this is the exception to my rule, something else. And now it is okay to say something in the same sentence because we are qualifying the second one to include else. So the word becomes something and the other word is something else. Technically, only technically, but technically different words. because it has else. So I'm interested in changing something into something else. What? Never I think before. I never think, not never I. It should be I never something. But I will recommend just removing it, make the sentence clear, like in chemistry. So changing something into something else, like in chemistry. In this case, you need better fundamental English before you can have good English. Dana? Okay? So my hobby is, oh no. Playing computer game, only one game? Or more? Yeah? So. So simple, my playing computer games, because now game becomes games, so because they. Now, well, we can say, just to be clear, if we say it is, playing is the thing that is described here. So playing computer games because playing. So like playing games is both, and that's what is here. It, I mean, so if it said because it is both, it, what does it describe? If it describes games, then it must become they, because games is plural. If we want to describe playing, then it is singular. And this is why I say it can be improved into something else to give us more clarity, to remove ambiguity. If we say it is both relaxing, my question is playing relaxing or are games relaxing? Which one is relaxing? If we qualify, if we add more information, like saying playing games, now it is clear. Fixing one word, it, makes a sentence much better. That's simple. Because playing games is both relaxing and increases my adrenaline.
Because playing games is both relaxing and playing games increases.
It's okay. We don't want to.
No, it's fine. It's correct.
Yeah,
It's just to explain because is increasing also makes sense, but it's not that here.
No, is increasing describes that
No, I know.
you're in a state of
That's exactly.
So in this case, it's really a simple thing. Singular to plural, specify the it, and then increasing becomes increases, and that's it. Now we have good foundation.
Hold on, let me ask. Because ini clause-nya apa? Because playing game kalau dipecah jadi clause-nya bilangnya ada dua kalimat. Kalau ini dipecah dari dua kalimat, jadi playing games is relaxing. Satu lagi,
well,
increases. Jadi playing games is relaxing and playing games increases. Jadi bukan is increases, tapi is dan bukan is increasing, artinya berbeda. Ini maksudnya ini ada dua kalimat digabung kan, jadi satu di Indonesia. This is technical for Indonesia. Cara kalau dikombinasi berarti nanti ini adalah dua kalimat digabung menjadi satu dan nanti membacanya sudah berbeda. Is-nya ikut yang di depan, yang di belakang nggak ikut is-nya. That's it.
And just to be clear, relaxed and increased adrenaline are technically opposite things.
Yes.
But I forgive that sentence because some people are more relaxed when they're having lots of adrenaline. So some people do feel a relaxation from an exciting game. So that is technically okay. Sudi? Okay. My hobby is fishing because it makes me learn about how to be a patient man.
Wow.
That is good. But now to say to be patiently in.
Yeah, it's already overwritten.
Patiently, if we had the comments again, patiently is an adverb, right? Not an adjective. I am a patient man. You're describing man, which is a noun, so it becomes an adjective. Patiently is an adverb, so it's describing the verb in. So if we now imagine he's patiently in something. So imagine he's sitting in a box and he's waiting to jump out of the box. And he sits patiently in the box. Right? That is what we are describing by saying be patiently in everything. The simple solution, and this is why. This is a feeling thing. But if I'm reading this as an English speaker, I'm very confused by it. But I know as an editor what you mean is to be patient. Not patiently. Now, and to be patient in everything. Now it makes sense. But patiently in, simply those two letters, L and Y, change the whole meaning of the sentence. Now, in the daily life, I would say make the sentence simpler. It's overwriting. So to be patient in my daily life, much better.
Or just remove to be patient in my daily life, be patient
in everything. Yeah, I mean, again, like to be a patient man is perfectly fine, and to be patient in my daily life is just extra information. In academic writing, I will say remove it. Because
remove one of them.
To be you have to remove one of them because it's kind of redundant. In this case, it's okay because this is not an academic article, so you can be a little bit more descriptive, but in academic writing, try to be more efficient. Shorter descriptions are better, concise. Poetry? Okay.
Why does everyone loves the fish?
Everyone loves fishing.
What about the hobby fishing?
So engineers like fishing. And again, we add the period in the end, and again, this is another example. Because this activity makes me relax, good functional English, I do not need to fix anything. I can improve it, but nothing to fix.
Relaxed.
Yeah, well, again, if we want to improve it, we can try to describe relax more. We can, like, relax in what way? You know, like you can relax by, it makes me relax because it requires a lot of patience, or it makes me relax because it is a peaceful activity. So I enjoy fishing because it makes me relax.
Relaxed with ED. With ED.
Just to be clear, it makes you relax means you feel stress and you relax. It makes you relaxed. It means that you are in that state of relaxation. It makes me relax is technically correct because the other meaning is it makes me reduce my stress. In this case, we would say allows me to reduce my stress, but like that. So it makes me relax is the same as it makes me reduce my stress. But it makes me relaxed is the same as it makes me less stressed. Less stressed, like that. So
makes me less stressed, is he asking?
Less stresses? Well, if you keep stresses, it allows me to reduce my stresses. But that implies you have more than one stress. So again, it adds more meaning, right? If we say it makes you reduce your stress, you have one whole stress. If you say stresses, it's like, you know, your son is naughty and you want more money and your car is broken and your house is ugly. You have many stresses like that. So it means that you have more than one stress and you need to emphasize that you have more than one stress. So reduce my stress, easier, and allows me to be more relaxed. So again, the English is good. That's the key part. The English is good. We can simply improve on it, make it better, and maybe describe what you mean even better. Ratna?
Oh, there.
Okay. So gardening because plants. Now, especially flowers, overwriting. And if we can notice a trend. When you say especially, usually you're overwriting. But if you want to say plants and you want to say especially flowers, simply put it in commas, like that, or put it in parentheses. And here, what we are doing is we are emphasizing plants is the key part, especially flowers is the extra information. So by putting it in parentheses, we say, okay, plants make me whatever, but especially flowers. And it's simply extra information. Without it, it's bad English. So simply having a comma around especially flowers, or parentheses, or M dash, same thing. It adds more, it simply designates it as extra information. Now, the real problem is refresh, because plants make me refresh. Now, refreshed is correct, like that. So it makes me refreshed. Or even better, it makes me feel refreshed. But it makes you refresh means you are doing the refreshing. Do you understand? So, and of course, I don't think a person can refresh something. Can you refresh something?
I can refresh you.
Yeah. Oh. But in this case, so a person does not refresh, they feel refreshed. So I enjoy gardening because plants make me feel refreshed. And
Refreshes me, you can do that. The plants
refresh you, well, it's more physical then.
Okay,
Like,
never mind. Because
like you breathe the plants.
Yeah.
But again, we can also add more information. Plants make you feel refreshed. But plants only, or maybe tending plants, or growing plants, or maybe cutting plants. You understand? So adding more information to the plants part can also make it a better sentence, because you can say on the whole, like, I enjoy having an aquarium because fish make me happy. But in what way do they make me happy? Well, maybe fish make me happy because they are pretty. Fish make me happy because I like seeing them swim. So again, how do plants make you feel refreshed? Okay, I think we have to...
Yeah. A question? Yeah.
What if I put make become makes? What is the difference?
Makes and
Makes
make.
and
okay.
feels.
Plants is plural, therefore it must be make. If we say then it's makes. So if you have the S on makes because it is singular. So if it is singular, then it's going to become makes. If it is plural, it becomes make. So this makes me happy, and they make me happy. So they is more than one, becomes make. And if we say something like, what's another example?
The cats make me.
Not make, something else.
Oh. The
They walk into the restaurant is more than one. He walks into the restaurant is one. So when it's singular, you have the S. When it's plural, no S. Okay, I think we should go to the Google Translate.
No,
one.
no, just
It's ready?
no, don't have time. So we just have to
Okay.
finish it and then. Jadi ini memang tidak cukup untuk satu pertemuan. Jadi kita selesaikan dulu bagian pertama. Yang lainnya, what about the rest?
What do you prefer? Let's get some democracy. Do you want me
To continue this?
we should ask specifically Tari, Freddy, Hestiawan, Farid. Do you want me to address your sentences, or do you want me to continue to the Google Translate section?
No, to the third section.
The third one, yeah.
We don't have time though. The translation is half an hour.
Just a few.
Okay. Yeah.
Just for perspective.
Okay. So.
Is the alternatives, can you
Jadi ada tiga bagian. Bagian ini adalah bagian untuk basic English. Bagian kedua adalah bagian teknis. Yang pertanyaan kedua, yang bagian ketiga adalah memperbaiki bahasa Indonesia supaya bisa menggunakan Google Translate. Nah itu panjang semuanya.
Yeah, the value of the Google Translate is you can assess your Indonesian writing.
Ya, karena kalau bahasa Indonesianya bagus, biasanya di Google Translate itu akan hasilnya lumayan untuk diperbaiki. Masa gimana?
Bagian yang kedua dan bagian ketiga diambil satu-satu.
One example, second part and the third
Okay.
part is one.
So we'll do. Okay, let's see.
Memang harus. Ini biasanya banyak pertemuan soalnya ini jadi untuk example aja. Just choose one.
Of.
Yeah, the second one.
Okay.
Ini belum udah
Let's see,
editing
yes.
abstrak. Dulu kemarin bilang Mas Pur bilang siapa mau editing abstrak beberapa bagian silakan dikirim, nggak bakal rampung hari ini. Jadi itu lain waktu.
So we have not done Putri yet, correct?
No, we have.
Have we?
Yes.
Putri?
Yes, we have. We've done Putri. We haven't done go down. No, down. We haven't done Bobby and.
This is number 2. Okay.
What? Yeah, Bobby. Try Bobby. Bobby hasn't.
Okay, Bobby. Okay. So the question is, describe your current research interests. So control on dynamic systems using a feedback approach. Now we can get an example. I am not an engineer, so by and large, this is nonsense to me, right? So I have to use my skills in understanding English to understand what you mean. So, control on dynamic systems. Control singular? Describe control.
Control is about how we can achieve a goal. The system, I think, how the system can achieve the goal.
Would you say controlling dynamic systems?
Control is like we would like to increase the level of water to a certain point of degree.
Okay, so control on can be control of or controlling. So controlling dynamic systems means that you're interested in controlling dynamic systems using a feedback approach. Or you can say, I'm interested in the control of. So I don't think you mean on, right? I think you mean of.
But if the control is something we apply to the systems.
Okay, in this case, it is modifying the dynamic system.
Yeah.
A control is, you can describe it better than me, you're the scientist.
No.
What's a control? We know what a control is, right? So control is the baseline. So in this case, the challenge is to not refer to the baseline. So a control on something doesn't really make sense. Because again, if we imagine on, it is happening on the dynamic system as opposed to you studying how dynamic systems are controlled, or how feedback is used to do that. So I think it's control of dynamic systems using a feedback approach. Do you agree or disagree? Agree? Okay. Hopefully for the right reason. So this feedback serves to reduce disturbances. So feedback approach. When you say this feedback, you're referring to feedback and not the approach, right? So this feedback, referring to feedback in the approach, serves to reduce disturbances acting on the systems. The rest of it is perfectly fine. Serves to reduce disturbances. The question here is, you say using a feedback approach, and the emphasis is on approach.
Yeah.
Because you're saying, I am studying the control of dynamic systems and my approach is feedback. Does that make sense to you?
No. Boleh protes, boleh nggak setuju, boleh, nggak apa-apa.
So instead of saying this feedback, you instead specify feedback better.
There are a lot of
Approaches, yeah.
feedback question.
Would you say the feedback approach serves to reduce? The feedback approach, what serves to reduce the disturbance? Feedback or the approach?
The approach which is
The
There you
feedback,
go.
yeah. Feedback
So
approach.
instead we have to say this approach, like that. Okay, have we done Danang?
Yang belum lagi siapa? Yang belum? Yang belum untuk yang pertama? Siapa mau?
Karya utama.
Karya utama? Udah belum? Oh,
Okay.
belum. Not yet.
This one is long.
But it's business.
Let's look at it on the broad thing. Okay, business sustainability. In the past, businesses were focused. Past means past tense, so businesses were focused. Past tense, were focused more on how they reach their economic performances and targets. When we say more, it means we are comparing something. So they'll focus more compared with what? Right?
Okay, this is yep. So when you say in the past business were focused more on how something than on something. Karena kalau more berarti harus ada yang diperbandingkan. Yang nulis paham more dengan siapa? Yang orang engineering sama orang ekologi nggak paham, ya kan? Ya, ini yang dimaksud di sini bahwa hanya karena sudah benar. Cuma yang baca kalau bukan bidangnya mungkin memang nggak bakal baca. Tetapi ini ada yang kurang di sini. Bukan Inggrisnya yang bermasalah, bukan tulisannya yang bermasalah. Ini cuma bagaimana menyampaikan supaya jelas. Now I'm just telling that he understand, maybe people in his field understand what's implied there, but not what's not.
Yeah, again, right? The reader is not a mind reader. They read your text, not your mind. So you cannot assume they know. And more has an implication of a comparison, that you're comparing it with something else, which you explained, right?
Yeah.
So businesses were focused more on how they reach. We can keep that for now. Yeah. Nowadays, we face several issues about our environment. Businesses have to put their concern on other things.
This is a bit choppy.
Yeah, okay. The good thing is that the English
is quite good.
Yeah, the English is pretty good. The sentences are short, so we can identify the problems much quicker. If you have a good foundation, it's easier to edit. So we can see, okay, so nowadays we face several issues about our environment, such as what, right? We can add more information, such as climate change or whatever. Forcing businesses to alter their, maybe concern is not the best thing, but we can say the concern. So if we say, in the past, businesses focused on increasing economic performance. However, nowadays, society faces many problems related to the environment, such as climate change, forcing businesses to change their approach.
Okay, we're running out of time. I'll just explain a bit. No, I just explain a bit. Saya akan menjelaskan ini kasusnya bukan bahasa Inggrisnya. Ini kasusnya yang tidak kita bahas hari ini adalah koherensi antar kalimat. Yang coherence.
And cohesion.
And cohesion. Coherence dan cohesion artinya adalah bahasa Inggrisnya benar. Ini lepas dari tadi than-nya dibandingkan apanya belum ada. Tetapi kalimat pertama, kalimat kedua dan kalimat ketiga ini yang saya baca sekilas itu kan nggak nyambung. Perlu sesuatu yang menyambungkan kalimat pertama, kalimat kedua dan kalimat ketiga, dan itu yang namanya nanti kohesi sama coherence dalam kalimatnya. Yang misalnya tadi sudah disampaikan nowadays about environmental tentang apa, kemudian apa hubungannya bisnis dengan environment tadi. Dan banyak sekali yang seperti ini dalam artian ada bahasa Inggrisnya bagus, sebetulnya isinya sudah bagus, tetapi untuk menyusun koherensi antar kalimat itu yang ketinggalan. Ini sebetulnya contoh bagus untuk kalau waktunya luang, tapi karena sekarang harus lompat ke 3, jadi mohon maaf kita langsung ke nomor 3, just ke nomor 3.
Just to be clear, in this case, in business scholar does not make sense.
Oh yeah.
Maybe major current issues faced by business scholars, but in the scholar, you have food inside you, right? Your heart is inside your body. The current issue cannot be inside you. That's why it doesn't make sense.
Just go directly to
okay. So this one is your task.
Ini agak lama, guys. Oke, ini masalahnya adalah ini lama. Yang ini yang paling lama adalah bagian ini. Ini tugas bagian ini. Pada prinsipnya adalah Google Translate buat orang yang saya cepat, Google Translate bagi orang yang berputus asa supaya cepat itu bisa dilakukan. Tetapi untuk bisa menghasilkan Google Translate yang paling tidak readable itu bahasa Indonesia aslinya paling tidak harus sudah strukturnya bagus. Dan itu saya jamin kalau misalnya dari awalnya bagus itu Google Translate sudah masuk akal. Nah masalahnya untuk itu kita punya waktu. Coba saya coba Google Translate, saya coba yang pertama ya, atau minta yang agak panjang. First one?
Yeah.
Oke, kita nyoba apa? Jadi Google Translate.
Yeah, just open that.
Ini untuk cara untuk yang putus asa. Saya pernah mengalami, karena saya pernah mengalami waktu itu saya tidak punya waktu.
You can just press F11 again.
Tidak punya waktu dan saya dasarnya abstraknya bahasa Indonesia. Saya minta dia, pokoknya saya Google Translate kalau buat dan menurut dia nggak banyak yang perlu diperbaiki. Artinya saya bahasa Indonesia udah lumayan. Jadi ini untuk yang kesusu istilahnya. Ini. Okay, vegetarian lifestyle is very good for health. But the vegetarian, you can read it. The vegetarian lifestyle has been carried out by people from ancient times, and they have proven to have far better health. Okay, ini B-nya ini kasus yang kecoak tadi lagi, B-nya itu referensi ke ancient times atau people, nanti tidak bisa, masih bisa ditentukan masalah. Dan people who live in the present, this proves that the vegetarian, it's not
Technically, the English is fine. Do you mean carried out?
But which one?
Carried out by people. You carry out a lifestyle?
The vegetarian lifestyle has been.
Yeah.
Has been. Okay. No, the lifestyle carried out there.
First of all, vegetarian lifestyle. Lifestyle is a noun, so it's missing an article. The vegetarian lifestyle.
So this is the vegetarian lifestyle.
It does not say the.
It is.
The first sentence.
Oh, okay, sorry, ya. Yang ini bagian ini memang harus kita edit sendiri karena kita harus menambahkan the di bagian depan. Tapi itu bukan barang berat kan. Tapi yang jelas, secara umum ini sudah bagus. Jadi awalnya kurang lebih bagian ini mesti sudah bagus.
Does the first sentence describe exactly that? Vegetarian lifestyle is very good for health.
It's very good for health, yes.
Because that's a kind of a vague sentence.
It doesn't matter, you're just talking about the translation. Saya tidak bilang kualitas kalimatnya, saya bilang kualitas translationnya sama penulisannya. Jadi gaya hidup vegetarian sangat bagus untuk kesehatan. Itu sebetulnya ini kan fake, ambigu. Sebetulnya bagus untuk kesehatan itu seperti apa? Tapi kita tidak membahas itu sekarang, ini yang dipermasalahkan esensinya. Yang we're talking about the result of the translation. Jadi a vegetarian lifestyle, right? A vegetarian lifestyle is very good for health. Itu sudah acceptable, sudah bisa, sudah sesuai dengan kalimat yang dimaksud. Gaya hidup vegetarian sudah banyak dilakukan oleh orang-orang dari masa purba dulu. Okay. The vegetarian lifestyle it has been.
The thing is that I would probably rewrite the whole thing.
No. Okay.
Technically it makes sense, but it feels wrong.
Ya, hasil bahasa Indonesia ke Inggrisnya ini masih Indo-English, tetapi ini bisa dibetulkan dengan mudah karena ini sudah bisa dipahami. Okay? Jadi ini bukan contoh yang bagus, karena contohnya harusnya yang agak sulit diterjemahkan. Just one more. No, that was not the.
People who live in the present, again, that's metaphysical.
Yes. Okay.
Modern people is the correct way of saying it.
Itu urusan lain. Kita ngomong hasil translationnya aja, oke? Say, instant noodles are food products that can be used as breakfast and can be obtained at the sites, but based on my experience,
I have to stop you. You do not use a breakfast. You eat breakfast.
I know. Instant noodles are filling, but mixing. Okay. You talk about the English. We'll talk about the English. I'll talk about the Indonesian.
So, first of all, you do not use breakfast or lunch. You eat it. So, instant noodles are food products that can be eaten for breakfast. How do you fix that in the Indonesian?
No, the Indonesian is fine. Yeah, okay. Ini adalah bagian yang tidak bisa diperbaiki walaupun bahasa Indonesia yang versi bahasa Inggris sudah bisa dipahami, tetapi tetap harus diedit. Nah, kita buat itu. What?
Okay.
It's really hard. It takes time.
Yeah, but I mean, the Indonesian is good.
No, it's not
So,
effective enough, but
yes.
it's fine.
Can you fix the Indonesian to make the English better?
I can, but not right away.
Can you fix it to say can be eaten for breakfast?
I'll see. Nanti di rumah ya. Sudah ini, karena nggak ada waktu sekarang. No, we don't have time.
Yeah.
We can wrap up. Saya akan coba nanti bahasa Indonesia, nanti kita coba hasilnya di grup masa saya di rumah, oke?
I just want to say one thing to be clear. You say consuming instant noodles instead of rice is something that makes it uncomfortable. So you feel uncomfortable eating noodles.
Yeah.
I hope you mean that, because I mean that sounds very funny.
Yeah.
I feel like there is a clog.
Yeah, okay. Ini ada permasalahan dalam Indonesia ditranslate ke Inggris dengan Google Translate. Kalau bahasa Indonesia bagus, bahasa Inggris terjemahannya sudah bisa dipahami, itu sudah tidak masalah. Yang menjadi permasalahan adalah ini yang kita tidak akan pernah bisa memperbaiki dalam banyak hal. Ekspresi kita dalam bahasa Indonesia itu tidak bisa ditranslate dalam bahasa Inggris secara langsung. Harus dikatakan dengan bentuk yang lain. Nanti akan saya coba beberapa bagian akan saya di Google Doc kan sudah pada punya. Nanti akan saya coba mengubahnya sehingga kita lihat hasilnya seperti apa. That's it. I have to do it later.
Yeah. Just to be clear, I assume you're saying the same thing, but basically, Google Translate can help you. It is a very good tool, but it is also not the solution. It is simply a tool. And now you have homework. I hope you did not expect to go home without homework. Your first piece of homework is reevaluate your work. So taking what you have learned today, I hope that you can go home, reread your work, see if you can spot the mistakes that you have made, see if that you can see something that you do not need an editor for. Is my writing consistent? Is it clear? And are you using the correct technical nomenclature?
Untuk writing clear bisa minta tolong teman biasanya untuk membaca. Paling bagus kalau bukan di bidangnya. Itu yang paling bagus untuk mengecek apakah dia paham yang dimaksud. Bukan arti technical terms-nya. Saya tidak tahu apa tadi feedback approach, tapi yang penting saya tahu kalimatnya artinya apa.
Okay. These are the big ones though, consistency and correct technical nomenclature. And I would suggest that what you do is go back to something that you have written, track changes, and try to fix it so that you can see what you are improving. Because I will tell you this, if I write something and I go back to it later, 100% of the time, I think what I have written before is bad. So if I look at the best thing that I wrote in 2010, I think it is bad writing. Because I am a better writer now. So if you are improving, you must think that your older writing is not as good as your current writing. If you are satisfied with something you wrote 10 years ago, it means you have not improved. And this is a universal fact for everyone. And who has heard of Duolingo? Okay. I am not associated with Duolingo, so I am not promoting them for any other reason, but you can visit duolingo.com, create an account, you can download it on Google Play, and I highly recommend that you use Duolingo because it allows you to practice English every day, just for 5 minutes. That's simple. For 5 minutes every day, you can improve your English little bit by little bit. It's basic things in the beginning, but it becomes more complex, and it's also it helps you to refine your fundamental skills. So even if you think that, hey, I'm smart enough, I'm good enough at English, I don't need basic skills, there's nothing wrong with being good at fundamentals. And the reason I recommend it to you is because that's what I use to learn Indonesian. And I'm satisfied with it. I think I am improving in Indonesian very slowly, and I admit I have been lazy and I've not used it for 1 week. But when I'm using it, I'm always asking Leily, about things that I learned. She can vouch for me. And I'm always feeling like I'm improving. And I think that if I am experiencing improvement using Duolingo in Indonesian, you will experience the same improvement. It's just a simple You load it, you spend 5 minutes on it every day, and you will get better just like that. And it's actually sometimes better than a teacher, I will say that. They're going to make teachers obsolete. Okay, thank you.
Baik, terima kasih Bu Leli dan Alex. Bapak Ibu sekalian yang saya hormati, saya tidak bisa menyimpulkan yang pasti. Pertama bahasa Indonesia yang baik itu akan berpengaruh pada bahasa Inggris yang baik kalau terkait dengan Overwritten Sentences. Kedua konsentrasi ke konten. Kemudian bahasa Inggrisnya yang penting basic Inggrisnya benar sehingga editor tidak pusing. Kalau kita kan tidak memusingkan editor itu.
Lebih murah ya.
Kemudian yang ketiga mungkin lain kali atau tahun depan kita bisa bikin bersesi gitu sehingga kita bisa bagi teman-teman yang serius nanti kita bisa lebih baik. Saya kira demikian. Terima kasih lagi untuk